Every time you swipe your card, hand over a bill, or tap your phone to pay, you think you're exchanging money for value, right? But what if I told you that every single dollar you spend carries a cost far greater than the number printed on it? A cost you can't see, a cost you already agreed to without ever signing a thing. Because the truth is, the dollar you hold isn't just currency, it's a promise. A promise born in debt, raised by inflation, and protected by illusion. In this episode, we'll unravel the system that makes every dollar a silent contract between you and the people who control money itself. A system so deeply engineered that even governments can't escape it. This is the hidden cost of every dollar you spend. The birth of invisible debt. To understand how a simple piece of paper turned into one of the most powerful control tools in history, we have to go back not to Wall Street, but to 17th century England. The year was 1694. The British Empire was running out of gold. Endless wars had drained the treasury. So King William III needed money. Fast. Enter a group of private financiers who proposed a new idea. We'll lend you money if you let us print it first. Thus, the Bank of England was born, the first central bank to issue paper notes backed not by gold owned, but by debt owed. Every note printed represented a promise to repay, not real wealth. From that day on, every pound circulating carried a silent cost, interest. And when that model worked, governments everywhere took notice. Debt had become profitable. Cut to animation of early Bank of England charter. Visual of handwritten banknotes marked promise to pay. It was the birth of a system where money itself equals debt, a structure that would one day shape the US dollar and the global economy. America joins the game. Across the Atlantic, a young United States watched closely. After winning independence, America needed its own money, free from British banks. In 1791, Alexander Hamilton helped create the first Bank of the United States. Its job? Issue money and lend it to the government. But people soon realized the trap. The more money printed, the more the government owed. Thomas Jefferson warned, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks will deprive the people of all property. He wasn't wrong. Because that's exactly what happened, over and over. The first bank expired, then came the second. Then decades later, after financial panics and recessions, came the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, signed quietly on Christmas Eve. A private network of bankers, backed by government authority, gained the power to create US dollars out of nothing. But here's the twist. Each dollar entered the world as debt. Every note printed meant someone, a bank, a business, or you, owed money plus interest to someone else. Visuals: Jekyll Island meeting recreation. Old photos of J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Paul Warburg, 1913 Federal Reserve seal fade in. And this was the start of the hidden cost. The debt baked into every dollar ever created. The gold illusion, for decades, the illusion held strong. The dollar was backed by gold, people said, so it must be safe. But the truth was already slipping. In 1933, during the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt outlawed private ownership of gold. Americans were forced to trade their gold for paper dollars, at a fixed rate. The message was simple: trust the paper. But behind closed doors, the U.S. government could now print freely. Then came 1944, Bretton Woods. World leaders gathered in New Hampshire to design a new global financial order. They decided the US dollar, backed by gold, would anchor world trade. Other currencies would tie themselves to the dollar. And for a while it worked. But by the 1960s, foreign countries noticed something strange. The US was printing way more dollars than it had gold to back them. In 1971, President Richard Nixon finally ended the charade. With one announcement: we are suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. The world officially entered the fiat era. From that day on, every dollar in existence became purely faith-based, a symbol, not a substance. And yet, people kept spending, unaware that the cost of every dollar had just become infinite, limited only by trust. Money from nothing. Let's pause. When you borrow money, where does it actually come from? Most people imagine a vault, piles of cash waiting. But in truth, banks create new money the moment you take a loan. If you borrow $10,000, that money didn't exist yesterday. It has typed into existence through fractional reserve banking, a system that allows banks to lend many times more than they actually hold. So every new loan adds new money and new debt. VO. Here's the twist most people miss. Because every dollar is created as debt, and debt carries interest. There's always more debt in the system than there is money to pay it back. That means defaults aren't accidents, they're features. And inflation? That's the tax you never voted for. When new money floods the system, the value of existing money drops, your savings lose power, prices rise, and your labor buys less. That's the hidden cost of every dollar you spend. You pay it not once, but forever. The hidden tax called inflation. Governments love inflation because it silently erases their debt and quietly taxes yours. If you earn $50,000 today and inflation is 7%, you just lost $3,500 in value without a single law being passed. In the 20th century, one US dollar lost over 95% of its purchasing power. The same dollar that could buy a steak dinner in 1910 can barely buy a cup of coffee now. And yet we celebrate growth. Stock prices rise, property values soar, but what we're really measuring is the decline of the dollar itself. The more money created, the less each dollar is worth, and the more of them you need just to survive. Inflation doesn't just raise prices, it reshapes behavior. It forces people to chase yield, speculate, borrow, and consume, because saving becomes punishment. And that's exactly how the system was designed. The global web, you might think this is an American problem, but the truth is, it's global. After 1971, every major country followed the US lead, abandoning gold, embracing debt-based money. Now, the world owes over $315 trillion, 3 times more than the entire planet's yearly income. That's not just nations borrowing from each other. It's the system borrowing from the future itself. Developing countries borrow in dollars, then pay interest in a currency they don't control. A hidden empire exists, not of soldiers or flags, but of credit ratings and interest rates. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank enforce financial obedience. Countries that can't pay are told to privatize, deregulate, and cut public services, creating cycles of dependency that last generations. Debt becomes the new form of colonialism, invisible, but total, and the US dollar? Still the global reserve currency, meaning every nation pays tribute in trust. The breaking point, but systems built on illusion always face a reckoning. Every major empire in history, Rome, Spain, Britain, expanded through credit, then collapsed under it. The US is now the most indebted nation in history. In 1980, debt to GDP was 30%. Today, it's over 120%. Every year, trillions in new dollars enter circulation, not to build roads or schools, but to pay interest on old debt. This is the ultimate paradox. Money creation keeps the system alive, but also poisons it further. When interest rates rise, the debt chain snaps. When they fall, bubbles form. There's no equilibrium left, only delay. And every delay makes the final correction more violent. The fallout we're living in, we're already feeling the consequences. Rising prices, falling wages, record wealth gaps. Since 2008, central banks have printed over $30 trillion. That money didn't vanish, it flowed upward. The top 1% gained assets. The bottom 50% gained debt. This isn't an accident, it's arithmetic. Because those who own the system own the cost. The cost of living crisis isn't new. It's the delayed bill for decades of invisible debt, paid not by governments but by you, through every transaction, every paycheck, every rent increase. Each dollar you spend feeds a system that demands more dollars tomorrow. The machine doesn't stop, because if it ever did, the illusion would collapse. The failed fixes. Over the years, many have tried to fix it. In 1933, it was gold confiscation. In 1971, fiat freedom. In 2008, quantitative easing. In 2020, digital liquidity. Every solution was just another layer of debt, a bigger bandage on a deeper wound. And now we stand at the edge of another transformation: central bank digital currencies. Programmable money. Trackable, taxable, and fully controlled. They promise convenience, but they also promise control. Imagine a world where your dollars can expire or be blocked. Where spending limits replace freedom. Where saving becomes impossible by design. This isn't speculation. It's already being tested in China, Europe, and pilot programs across the US. The question isn't if, it's when. Modern parallels history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. In ancient Rome, emperors debased silver coins to pay debts, mixing copper until the denarius was worthless. Citizens protested the rising prices. Sound familiar? In Weimar, Germany, 1923, a loaf of bread cost billions of marks. The government printed until paper itself became cheaper than ink. And yet, even then, people trusted it. Until they didn't, every system that ties money to faith, not value, eventually meets disbelief. And disbelief is the one thing no central bank can print. Today, trust is fading. Surveys show that over 60% of Americans no longer understand how money is created. That's not ignorance. That's design. Because the less you know, the easier you are to control. And the more you spend, the higher the hidden cost becomes. 3 takeaways. So what do we learn from all this? Takeaway 1. Money isn't neutral. It's designed, and its design determines who benefits. Takeaway 2. Debt is the product. Governments, corporations, even you are all paying interest on money that never truly existed. Takeaway 3. Inflation is the weapon. It transfers wealth quietly, invisibly, and relentlessly from the poor to the asset-rich. Every dollar you spend is part of that transfer. Not by choice, but by structure. The warning: the system won't collapse overnight. It never does. It decays slowly, one purchase, one policy, one crisis at a time. Until the illusion cracks, and the trust holding it all together evaporates. When that day comes, the question won't be how much money do you have, but what is your money even worth? Because when faith dies, value dies with it. And then, the hidden cost becomes visible. If this video opened your eyes, remember, awareness is the first step toward freedom. Learn how money really works. Question what you're told. And before you spend your next dollar, ask yourself, who profits from it? Because understanding the system is the only way to stop paying for it. If you found this valuable, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more deep dives into money, history, and the hidden forces shaping our world. This was the hidden cost of every dollar you spend, and now, you know the price.